All right, and welcome to another video on our Road to Cairns training update. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. My name is Des Trindall and I'm a 57-year-old triathlete based in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, juggling the demands of work and family with Ironman training. Now, this week's been a bit of an interesting week, as you see from the thumbnail that you clicked on, the Tweed Enduro. Let's briefly talk about that, and firstly I'd like to compliment, I guess, the race director and the organisers on probably a wise decision given the weather that we had over the last few days, and especially the way the media was talking that up. They made a very difficult and an early decision to cancel the race on grounds of safety. And I understand that can never be an easy decision. A lot of us have trained, we've booked accommodation and we've committed both time and money to that, but fully understandable, guys. And to be honest, a big well done from me at least. And I hope the rest of the tri community out there can see that as well. So going on to our training, what that did was it broke it, or it mixed it up a little bit in the way that I wasn't really tapering for the Tweed Enduro, even though it is sort of the half Ironman distance over a 1.9k swim, a 90k bike ride and a 21.1k run. We were still 18 weeks to go until that Cairns Ironman, so still a long way to go, and I wanted to keep some momentum in training. However, saying that, I did sort of freshen up a little bit. So when the announcement was made on the Thursday, I did have to pivot my training over the weekend. Also remembering that it was still quite bad weather outside, so we had to look at how we could get that training volume in and staying safe in that process. But let's go back to the beginning of the week. So if we go back onto Monday, which is the start of my training week, I actually had a rest day. I had a fairly good weekend the weekend before. I got a good volume run in, a good volume bike in and swim. And I decided that given that we were racing on the following Sunday, I was going to use the Monday as a rest day leading in. And I also had an office shift that day. So when I do have an office shift, it's in the city. I like to get in early and get out early to work my way around the traffic as well. So Monday, if we put a line through that one, it was our rest day. So heading on to Tuesday. Now, Tuesday was nothing special. I pretty much did what I do every other Tuesday. I went out and did a 90-minute zone 2 ride. And with that ride, what I'm looking at doing is staying in the aero position as much as possible. I do put the little front hydration, I think it's a profile design hydration between the arms on that has the straw, because it's good to practice using that in training. And also concentrating on keeping that power constant. The course that I ride is fairly flat. It does have a few interruptions, and is because it's mostly on the bike paths leading past the Deegan deviation, down past the entertainment centre, down to Nudgee. So there's a few parts there where you're ducking under the highway and overpasses where you're broken up. But for a majority of the ride, you're able to stay and hold good power and just concentrate on form. So not a bad ride. I enjoyed the morning, and I always like that. You're away from the traffic, so it just lets you relax a little bit as well. So moving on to the Wednesday. Now the Wednesday, this is a weird week because I had another office shift. We had some stuff going on in the office that needed some attention. So back into the office that day, but I did get up early and do a run. Now what I wanted to do there was, leading into the weekend, I just wanted to remind my legs that I was going to be running a little bit more than that zone 2 pace. So I went out and I did 4 by 4 minutes with a 2-minute walk recovery. And I run these at about 90%. But saying that, this week I ran them what I felt I was capable of running the half at. Now that's a little bit hard because you're not running on fatigued legs like you are when you get the bike. So it's very much running on feel, concentrating on your breathing. In that 4-minute period, you don't see a massive spike in the heart rate. Your heart rate is always going to drift a little bit behind the actual effort or the exertion. So it's more on feel. You can look at the data later. I did look at that data later, and I could see that I was running on around that 148 to 152 beat per minute. Which is about what I would run at in a half distance race. So, and what I did find though, that the pace was a little quicker than what I thought. and that would be the fresh legs not coming off the bike. So that was the only training. No, sorry, that wasn't the only training session. So I did go into the office after that, and then I came back and had about a 3:34 p.m. swim. We have a great little facility here at Redcliffe. It's an indoor 50-metre pool, and I got a nice warm-up. I did a 300-metre warm-up and then 8 by 200 metres. And I do the first 4 just in freestyle, and then I did the second 4 with pull buoy and paddles. And I'm just focusing on form, breathing again. I'm not pushing the effort, so I'm not going sort of an anaerobic effort, keeping it a very much an effort I felt I could swim that 1.9 kilometres at, and just floating through and concentrating on that body position and the glide especially, and holding out. So that gave me, once I did the warm down, around that 2,000 metres. So out of the pool, still feeling nice and refreshed and relaxed. So heading into Thursday. Now Thursday, what we were planning to do is we're planning to leave for Tweed on the Friday morning, given that it was a Saturday race this week. So Thursday, what I did was I set my bike up with the race wheels, and I was racing in a 404 front and a disc and things like that. So once I had the bike all set up in race trim, I just did a simple 60 minutes where the first sort of 20 minutes were just rolling along, a little bit of a warm-up. And then I did a 2-minute effort. Now the 2-minute effort was a little bit above what I felt, excuse me, above what I felt I was going to be able to hold the race pace for in the Tweed at the 90K. So not pushing flat out, but making sure the legs were aware. A really good break in between that 2 minutes, and then another 2-minute effort where I continued the same thing. And that was pretty much it for that day. So that day I actually had a shift at the races. So my shift was from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So that was pretty much the only training that I was getting that day. And it also marked the last day of work for me for a week. So what I'd planned to do was to go and have the Friday and then the weekend off, and then up until the following Friday as a break from work. We're doing up our old horse truck into a motorhome, which we've been doing for a little while now, but it's getting closer, and the motivation's there to finish the project off. So it's also great for when we go away for races. I have my fridge, microwave, everything in there, coffee machine, and I don't have to line up for the portaloos if I park close enough. I have my own toilet shower in there as well. So I call it T3. Which is a great little facility to have when you're going to a race. Also means that the night before the race too, I can drive down and I can sleep very close to the race site. Normally in the car park, I just sort of introduce myself to the race security, and they keep an eye on you for the night as well. So, but Thursday afternoon we get the text. We get a text which, as I said earlier in this video, good on you, race director and the Tweed committee and everyone involved. It's such a shame that I know the work that goes on behind the scenes to get an event like this organised, and the disappointment the committee must have felt, but well done on that decision, and we look forward to racing that probably next year. And for those of you who know this organisation, they run the Kingscliff race as well, I believe, so we're back there in 2 weeks, and hopefully the weather will be a bit more promising for that one. So Thursday night, the text did come through, the race was cancelled. So then we had to look at how we were going to pivot our training. Also Thursday, we had the storms roll in. The weather front we saw coming across. I was at the races at Redcliffe, and we could actually see it coming across. We saw the Ipswich races were abandoned with two races to go in the meeting. We were lucky to get our program finished for the day and out of the venue before the weather hit. So, and down it came. It didn't get as much in Brisbane as what they were forecasting, but I believe the Gold Coast and Tweed, for talking to people down that way, really did get hammered. So the pivot for the weekend was we went out on Friday morning, and obviously we were feeling a little bit fresh because we'd not so much tapered, but we had freshened up is probably the best word, and we used to use that when we were training the horses. Is a 60-minute run, and it was going to be an upper zone 2 run, so just floating through on feel, holding form and running through, and that's pretty much all the training I did on the Friday. Moving into the Saturday, weather was terrible in Brisbane, showers, rain, gusting winds, everything like that, so I just pulled the pin on heading outside. Behind me on the left you can see my trainer set up, and I jumped on the trainer. I threw on the Cairns Ironman. Unfortunately, they only had the 2021 course on I think it's Rovi, I think it's how it's pronounced, which I'm hoping that they upgrade that shortly, because being the main sponsors of Ironman, they don't have Port Macquarie on, and they have a very old version of the Cairns course. So hopefully they can lift their game, and if they're listening or seeing this video, guys, come on, pay attention. We need those courses online. But my setup's pretty good. I have a Wahoo Smart Trainer, and I use an Elite riser on the front, as you can see there. And what that does is when you come to the hills in the course, it actually lifts the bike up into the position you would be as if you were riding that particular incline. So that helps that muscular thing too. You know, if you're on a climb of 5 or 6%, as you know, you sort of get up on the sidebars and you push back a little bit in the saddle. So it lets you simulate that, and it lets you activate that muscles as well. So I did a 3-hour indoor, basically a zone 2 again, not really pushing it, no real tempo efforts in the ride. And then in the afternoon, I went to the pool, and I just did a continuous swim. I put my tri-suit on and I put my swim skin on, and I just swam 2.5k, which became 2,600, because once again I lost count of the laps, which I'm pretty good at doing, and just wanted to swim that at what I felt I was going to swim the open water at Tweed. So pushing a little bit harder than I normally would, but not flat out, and felt quite comfortable at the end. I actually pulled up with a pretty good 100-meter splits, and feeling quite like I could have kept going, which is what you want from those sort of sessions. So moving on to Sunday. Now Sunday, I was going to do a split run day here, but once again the weather continued raining. I went out in the morning. I did an hour and 45-minute zone 2 run, and in that run I made up some of my gels, and I used a little water, like they're a 300 ml bottle, to make the gels up. And what I'll do in the comments, I'll link down, I've got a great resource sheet on my website where you can go and you can actually see what I use to make those gels. And I even have an AI prompt that you can whack into either ChatGPT or whatever AI that you prefer using, and it will help you formulate a recipe based on, okay, I want to run for an hour 45, I want to use 60 grams of carbs per hour, this is the size container I'm using. How do I make that up, and what ingredients and things like that do I use? So I'll link that in the comments, and I'll link a link across in the description for that as well. But felt great. It was an hour 45. It was zone 2. It's really that base run that you're building over the period of weeks heading into Ironman. And I feel like I'm right where I want to be 18 weeks out, and it's progressing nicely. Finished the run, finished it very comfortably, like I could have gone on for another, at least felt like I could go for another hour or so, which is great given that we're still so far out. So in the afternoon, the weather was still blowing and raining and all the things that it's been the last few days. So rather than going out and getting wet again, I decided that this was meant to be a zone 1 30 minutes, and I could just as easily do that sitting on the bike behind me and watching a few YouTube videos and listening to some podcasts. So that's what I did to finish the week off. All in all, still a very productive week. I still got some good volume in, even though we have lost that the race simulation, or the actual race I should say. It's not really a simulation. There are quite a few more races coming up. We have back to the Tweed, where we have an Olympic distance there at Kingscliff in 2 weeks. I think we're 5 and a bit weeks out now from the little Raby Bay one, and then there's a longer distance to finish the Queensland Tri Series off at Moreton Bay. So I've elected not to go to Gundawindi this year. I will have a commitment that weekend with work with racing, so that one unfortunately got a line put through it, but I feel there's still enough racing and still enough time left heading into Cairns that we've got enough that we can do there. So anyway, if you've made it this far in the video, once again, thanks for watching. If you're subscribed, thanks for subscribing. If you're not, you know the drill. You're more than welcome to. It's completely up to you. And until our next video, stay safe out there and enjoy the process. Cheers, guys.